It's a Giants grab bag of topics on today's Locked on Giants podcast coming up next.
You are Locked On Giants, your daily New York Giants podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, New York Giant fans, and welcome to another edition of the Locked on Giants podcast, part of the Locked on Podcast family, your team every day. I'm Patricia Traina. Happy Friday to everybody. And thank you so much for making us your first listen of the day, or if you're watching us on YouTube, your first watch of the day. Appreciate everybody who's tuning in. And I appreciate especially those of you on YouTube who are getting me so much closer to the 1,000 subscriber mark. I think we have something like 50 more subscribers to go. So please, if you're a regular viewer of the show and you haven't already done so, please subscribe and like the channel and help me get to 1,000 subscribers. That would really be appreciated. All right, on today's show, we're going to do a grab bag of a podcast. So basically what that means is I have different topics that I'm going to talk about, stuff that was inspired by the week that was over in the land of the Giants. So we're going to talk a little bit about the offensive line, and we're going to talk a little bit about Daniel Jones, and we'll just see what comes up. So as always, feel free to drop me a line. If you have comments you want to add to it, you can send them to me on YouTube. Just respond in the comments, or if you're listening on any of our podcast platforms, the email address, lockedongiantspodcast@gmail.com, is in the show notes for you to send me an email. So love to hear from you. All right, let's talk about the offensive line. Now, all week long, one of the big topics was, why are the Giants playing Nate Solder, who has struggled, ahead of Matt Peart? And the question was put to Joe Judge, and Joe Judge predictably, as I mentioned on yesterday's show, and played you the audio clip, Joe Judge basically said, he punted on the question. He basically didn't come right out and say what was pretty obvious. And that is that Matt Peart apparently right now is not the better player over Nate Solder. So anyway, on Thursday, offensive line coach Rob Sale did come out, and he did not mince words. He basically came out and said that Matt Peart lacked physicality in his game, that Solder was the better player and the guy that they felt they could win with. And I also want to mention real quick, because I know a bunch of you have kind of said something about this with to me about David Turner, and when David Turner has called Matt Peart a cream puff. And while I'm not a big proponent of name calling, I think what David was trying to get at was that very same point that Rob Sale was trying to get at, without the name calling, again, of course, by Rob Sale. And that is, Matt Peart lacked the physicality that is needed to play that position. And Rob Sale basically said that when he spoke to the media. He said, this is a kid who, you've got to get into the guy's chest. You've got to go out there and you've got to play nasty. And there's just no nasty right now in Matt Peart's game. So David Turner was spot on with his assessment. Again, I don't agree with the name calling, but I get what he was trying to get at. And I just wanted to put that out there, because I know a lot of you are like, what's with him? And why is he calling, people names and whatnot? But anyway, with Peart, here's the thing. I mean, when you saw him not able to beat out Nate Solder, initially, I know I gave him the benefit of the doubt. I said, okay, you know what? He got off to a slow start in the summer. He was on PUP, I believe, for a back ailment. He had strained his back in April, I believe it was, working out. So we got off to a slow start, and I figured, okay, sit back a little bit, maybe he'll round out into shape and eventually overtake Solder. The fact that he hasn't done so at this point, and now here we are, we're in week 13 of the NFL season, that's concerning. Now, also concerning that Rob Sale didn't talk about, but stuff that we have noticed, and I have noticed in my film study as part of what I do over at Giants Country, as well as Inside Football. Matt Parrott's technique is, shall we say, a little bit of a mess still. All right, there's a couple things that jump out. Number one, he stops his feet once he makes contact with a guy. And when you are an offensive lineman and you stop your feet, you are going to get beat every single time. You have got to keep that forward momentum going. You can't just stop your feet and anchor, because if you do that, you're going to get pushed back on roller skates. And that's sort of what's happened at times with Matt Parrott. The other thing that the young man has shown is that he is sometimes a waist bender. It's like he's not trusting his knee bend. So when you bend at the waist, you are losing leverage, the leverage of your lower body. All right. So you become easy to push back and knock on your rump. And that is also happening with Matt Parrott. So the technique issue is still a matter of, trying to fix that. There were also some mental gaps in this last game. For example, there was a case where Matt Parrott lined up as a jumbo tight end, and I believe he botched I think it was a twist. I forget exactly who the twist was with, but it was obviously against the Eagles, but he botched a twist and the Eagles got a pressure on quarterback Daniel Jones. So these are little things that the coaches see that drive them crazy. And I don't necessarily think that means that they're giving up on Parrott. Rob Sale talked about, trying to bring out the nasty in his game and talked about how there are different ways to do that with different guys. That said, it's worth noting that the Giants are trying to coach up Isaiah Wilson, who they signed as a reclamation project, if you will. Next year on the right side of that offensive line, I don't think Will Hernandez will be back. I don't think Nate Solder will be back. So you're going to have an open guard position. You're going to have an open tackle position. And I would be willing to bet that if he is healthy and ready to go, Isaiah Wilson's going to fill one of those positions. Now, the Giants, remember, they have also been cross-training Matt Parrott at guard. So could he conceivably be the next right guard if they don't re-sign Will Hernandez? Possibly. But he's got to get the nasty back in his game. And right now, that's what's holding him back. One of many things that's holding him back. So bottom line is, we now know the answer why. And quite honestly, it was always obvious that was the reason why. But to hear one of the coaches validate it and confirm that indeed was the problem, I think sort of brings closure to the whole mystery of why Nate Solder, despite his struggles, is out there starting for the Giants at right tackle. All right, Giant fans, coming up next, we're going to talk a little bit of Daniel Jones. So stick around. Hey, Giant fans, you listen to podcasts for the power of knowledge, so why not switch to Boost Mobile for the power of saving money? Because with Boost, you get the power of a free 5G phone and 3 unlimited data lines for $30 a month per line, which includes access to one of America's largest 5G networks, the fastest network available. And with all that money you'll save and all that knowledge you'll gain, just how powerful will you become? Switch to Boost Mobile and find out. For a limited time only, get a free Samsung Galaxy A32 5G when you switch to one of America's largest 5G networks. Visit boostmobile.com to find out how you can start saving today. Terms and conditions apply. Hey, Giant fans, it's the most wonderful time of the year, and BuiltBar.com is going out of its way to make this holiday season its most delicious time of the year with new limited time flavors, new types of bars, and a winter wonderland of a deal featuring amazing flavors such as the Built Crave bars and their amazing puffs in ruby chocolate and lemon dip cheesecake. These and other amazing flavors are available right now in nut and nut-free variety. And right now you can save 15% off your first order when you use our special promo code LOCKED15. That's LOCKED15 to get 15% off your first order at BuiltBar.com. All right, Giant fans, welcome back to the Locked On Giants podcast with Patricia Traina. You have a grab bag today. We're talking about different topics about the New York Giants. And in this segment, I want to talk about Daniel Jones. Now, on Tuesday, I think it was, there was a report that Daniel Jones had the neck injury, that he probably would be week to week and would probably miss this Sunday's game against the Miami Dolphins. Well, Daniel Jones has been practicing all week long. And I talked a little bit about that on yesterday's show about, how really nothing changes because the quarterbacks, by nature of their position, there's no contact against them anyway. But you kind of get the impression that Daniel Jones is really pushing to play. And I know I wrote an article about this on Giants Country about why it was important for Daniel Jones to be out there for his teammates. But you also kind of get the impression that the Giants are pushing to have him out there to play if that neck is stable enough. And it's very important that, if Jones does have to miss time, that he doesn't miss a whole lot of time because there's a lot at stake here. All right. The Giants were using these last few weeks of the season to continue their evaluation of Jones, especially with the new play caller, Freddie Kitchens. They do have to make a decision on Jones's option year by May of next year, which, by the way, I think they're going to pick up regardless of who the GM is at the time. It just makes no sense to not pick that up and, see what you got with him on the assumption that you can get the offensive line fixed and you have all your healthy skill position players back. But here's the other thing. I get the feeling that Daniel Jones just kind of feels under the gun to be out there. And here's why. Daniel Jones is not, even though he is the starter, even though the organization, John Mara, Joe Judge have backed him and said he's their guy, he's not firmly entrenched as the quarterback. All right. This isn't a case like Eli Manning, where Eli Manning, everybody knew he was the guy. And if Eli had a bad year or 2 bad years, didn't matter because he was the guy. He was accomplished. He had the resume to overcome some of the latter years in his career when things kind of started to slide downhill. Daniel Jones doesn't have that cachet, if you will. So therefore, the pressure is kind of on this young man to step up, to be there, not miss time because of injuries or whatnot, and to just continue to grow, continue to prove that he can be the guy and continue to really lay down roots as the Giants franchise quarterback. Now, I've spoken before on this show about how, as of right now, the NFL draft class at quarterbacks, there's really no bona fide, surefire blue chip guy that you have to have. I mean, if you were to survey draft analysts right now, they would probably tell you, they would probably give you a different name as to who would be the blue chip guy to draft. So there's no consensus right now. So basically, it's kind of a bad year to be in need of a quarterback. What I think will happen, like I said, is I think the Giants will pick up Daniel Jones's option year. Makes too much sense not to, and just see what he can do. Now the injury situation is a concern. You don't want a situation where your quarterback is missing time every year. All right. And that's why I think, and that's why I get the impression that there's a greater sense of urgency by everyone to get Daniel Jones out there. Again, assuming that his neck is not at a point where he can make it worse if he plays. Now, right now, as I record this, it's a Thursday night. I haven't seen the final injury report, but Daniel Jones has been limited on Wednesday and Thursday. I do think he's going to be limited again on Friday, and I think he's going to be a game time decision. So there is a sense of urgency there. And, it's interesting. Daniel Jones right now kind of reminds me of me when I was a little girl. When I was a little girl in kindergarten, I used to get sick a lot. And I can remember whenever we had jobs to do, the teachers would give us jobs to do, whether it be turn off the lights, take the attendance to the main office, whatever the case may be. And I can remember when I used to have a job to do, if I got sick and my mom wanted to keep me at home because I got sick, I would fight her tooth and nail and insist that I had to go in because I had a job to do, that because my teachers and classmates were depending on me to do whatever the job was that I had for that particular week. So I kind of see that as the same thing with Daniel Jones. He recognizes he has a job to do. He wants to be there. You don't see this guy babying himself. And that's partially because I think, like I said, he's trying to lay down roots and show that he could be dependable, even if he's not 100% healthy. And really, nobody at this time of year is 100% healthy. So, do I think Daniel Jones is going to play Sunday? Hard to say. I mean, if I had to take a guess right now, I would be surprised if he does play, because again, when you're talking the head and neck injury, head and neck area, that's a very tricky area. You got to be careful back there. So I don't know how badly he's hurt. I'm certainly not going to sit here and make educated guesses on whether or not his neck was bothering him based on how he was moving. I haven't finished my medical degree, so I don't think I'm qualified to make that. But I think he's going to be a game time decision, and I would not be shocked if he doesn't play. I would be not be shocked if he does play. I know that's not giving you much of an answer, but I think they're going to do everything they can to get him out there, and we'll see. Right now, I just don't have a strong enough feeling. But listen, if I get some information, I'll give you guys an update if I can on YouTube and on here on the Apple podcasts and all the audio podcasts that you listen to. So, all right, Giant fans, stick around. We got one more segment to talk about what's next in our grab bag. You'll find out right after this. Hey, Giant fans, welcome to the month of December, the most wonderful time of year for the sports world. You have college football playoffs taking shape, bowl games, the NFL playoffs are taking shape, the NBA and NHL are heating up. And no matter what your favorite sport is, BetOnline has you covered all holiday season long with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. Head on over to their new updated or mobile website at betonline.ag to sign up today and receive a 50% welcome bonus with the promo code Locked On. Don't wait to take advantage of all the amazing offers available. Visit BetOnline today to get your 50% welcome bonus with the code Locked On. All right, Giant fans, welcome back to the Locked On Giants podcast. Patricia Traina here with you. And again, thank you for making us your first listen, or if you're watching us on YouTube, your first watch of the day. And thank you to everybody, especially over on YouTube, who has sent in comments. We've got a nice little community going on over there. So if you're not on YouTube, you want to check it out. We have a bulletin board going on where I post different things, and nice little community. I'm really enjoying getting to know some of the followers over there, as well as, of course, the folks who have been listening to me on the audio platforms. I still remember you. I still appreciate you, and I still enjoy interacting with you. And don't forget, on Tuesday, folks, we will have a Twitter Tuesday. So I'm giving you an early heads up now so that you can get your questions into me, so that come Monday night when I tape for Tuesday's show, you have plenty of time to get your questions into me. So again, Twitter Tuesday, lockedongiantspodcast at gmail.com. That address is in the show notes, so check it out. All right, in this final segment of our Grab Bag podcast, I'm going to talk a little bit about the Giants salary cap. Now, today it was announced that, or not announced by the Giants, but it was reported by Field Yates of ESPN that the Giants restructured center Nick Gates' base salary to create some cap space. And the Giants right now have, I believe, a hair over 2.9 million in cap space, which is not a lot. And that money, just so you know, the Giants have to devote money to the guys that they elevate from the practice squad. They get a bigger salary. Obviously, if a guy goes on IR and they replace the guy, they just have to keep, having a little reserve there. And the Giants just keep restructuring contracts, which ultimately I think is going to put them in a big hole for next year. So just kind of looking at 2022, right now, the Giants for 2022 have $207.26 million in cap liabilities. Now, the cap for 2022 is projected to be 208.2 million. So that's not a lot. The top 51 number, which goes into effect when the new league year starts, is at 206.9. So again, not a lot of breathing space for the Giants, who right now, the only dead money they really have on the books for 2022 is Sam Beal's prorated signing bonus, which is like 200, I think it's like 262.35. So it's not a lot. So anyway, let's talk about what some of the moves are. And again, this is early, but these are some of the moves that I think the Giants are going to make to clear up some cap space, because right now they don't even have enough to get their draft class signed. And remember, they're going to have 2 first-round picks, which I would assume they're going to use. And they don't have enough to pay these guys. So let's take a look at where they can cut some guy. All right. The first guy I think is in jeopardy of being lopped off the books is cornerback James Bradberry. James Bradberry has a cap number of $21.86 million next year. That due to a restructuring. Also part of James Bradberry's deal is he has a roster bonus that is due March 18th. It is $2 million guaranteed. So I believe March 18th is when the new league year starts, or it might be 5 days after. I'm not sure. I'd have to go back and look. But if I'm the Giants, I don't pick that up. They could save, if they make a pre-June 1st move, they'll save $12.136 million on the cap. They'll get hit with a 9.7 dead money rate. I don't pick that up. I'm sorry. I just can't see justifying keeping that kind of a cap hit. That's a huge, huge cap hit. And I would say, in the draft, see if you can get some new corners to help you out. All right. Who are some of the other guys with big cap numbers? Let's take a look. Saquon's not going anywhere and his number's locked in. Nate Solder is going to count for $4 million in dead money, not 9.9. So Nate Solder, his contract voids out next year, but the $4 million dead money is going to hit. The Giants are going to have a lot in dead money next year. There's no doubt about it. Leonard Williams, I don't think they're going to touch his number. He's got a 27.3 million cap hit. Andrew Thomas is 8.8. That's not going to get touched. Daniel Jones, 8.3. Blake Martinez, 14 million. Now they just redid Blake Martinez's deal this year. I don't know that they would do it again next year. I do think, however, maybe Sterling Shepard's number. I think Sterling Shepard, who has a 12.495 million cap hit, I think he's in jeopardy of getting lopped off the roster. The Giants would say 4.5 million with a 7.99 million savings if they do a pre-June 1st transaction on him. If they do post-June, 8.5 million would be the savings and 3.995 million would be the dead money for this year, plus 3.995 million for the following year. By the way, I'm going to do an article on this. So if you're not following the numbers or the logic, don't worry. An article's forthcoming on this, probably towards the end of the year. Kyle Rudolph is another contract I would maybe look to get rid of. He has, let me see, I think he's got a 2-year deal he signed. So let's see, Kyle Rudolph. Yes. So if you get rid of that contract, you save $5 million on the cap. You save $2.25 million if you unload that contract. And I think the Giants they're going to have to. I mean, tight end is going to be a need for them next year. No doubt about it in my mind. Kenny Golladay has a 21.15 million cap hit. He's not going anywhere, but I wonder, let me just see if Kenny Golladay, I know he's got guaranteed money next year, but let's see. So you don't want to get into $3 million base salary guarantee. He's got a roster bonus due and his 23 roster bonus is guaranteed. So yeah, you don't want to keep borrowing from Peter to pay Paul, because if you keep kicking that can down the line, you're never going to get out of cap hell. Even though in 2023 the NFL salary cap is going to shoot up because of the new TV deal revenue kicking in that year, I would not kick money down I would not kick the can down the road there. So let's see who else is not going to be back, or who else don't I think will be back. I think Logan Ryan should be okay, 12.2 million. Riley Dixon, don't see him being back. He's been so inconsistent. Riley Dixon, if you cut him next year, you save 3.25 million, and you get hit with a $125,000 dead money hit. I think that is probably a no-brainer. Dixon's final year of the contract is 2022, and he has a $250,000 roster bonus due March 22nd. So given how inconsistent Dixon has been, I think the Giants go in a different direction. I really do at punter. Let's see if there's anybody else that kind of jumps out. Let's see. Just looking real quick here. I think that's probably it, because a lot of the other contracts, that guys that are under contract, are really not big cap eaters. So that pretty much is a preliminary look at some of the moves I would make. Now, will there be more? Probably. The Giants have 42 players under contract, but again, they only have I think it's a little over $1 million in cap space according to over the cap. So they're going to have to clear guys out, because right now they don't have the money to expand that roster next offseason to 90. So we'll see what they do. Giant fans, again, may have a new GM in place. That new GM, if there is indeed a new GM, is going to have a lot of work to do, because that cap situation is a mess. And I think you're going to see a bunch of cuts made come February as they try to get that cap into some kind of decent shape in which to operate. I also think that you're not going to see a whole lot in the way of free agency. You're probably going to see them rely heavily on the draft, which is what they should have done in the first place, if you ask me. I mean, building a team through free agency is not the way to go. And I'm surprised the Giants did it this year, took that approach, but I guess they were looking to take a shortcut and jumpstart the team's success under Joe Judge. So we'll see what they do in the offseason. It'll be here before you know it. All right, Giant fans, that is going to do it for me for the week, for today. Thank you again for making the Locked On Giants podcast your first listen of the day, or your first watch if you're on YouTube. Appreciate you. And again, Twitter Tuesday will be next week. On Monday, David Turner will join me. We'll break down the Giants-Miami game. And next Thursday, we'll have the Chargers. We have the crossover show for the Chargers. And then I'll just see what we fill in for Wednesday and Thursday. The Giants are going to be on the road next week out in Tucson, Arizona. I unfortunately will not be out there for that, but that doesn't mean I won't be keeping an eye and my finger on the pulse on what's going on out there in with the Giants. So have a great weekend. Enjoy your football, and we'll talk to you again on Monday.